Coming back to the topic, how do we build resilient institutions to fight organized crime? So what idea do we have on how the Nigerian institutions are working? These two organizations are principal, they are key. We are discussing financial crimes and organized crimes. The CBN as the regulator for the money market, that's the banks, both commercial banks, microfinance banks, lead banks. And then the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, we know, is number one in the forefront of fighting economic and financial crimes.
The theme of this symposium is talking of building resilient institutions, making the institutions stronger to be able to fight organized crime through the facilitator, which is financial crime. Let us see why our countries having the challenges. They're coming from the institutions, and if from the institutions, what is wrong, so that we can now see how we can make them to become resilient. And then Nigeria as our country, where are we in terms of implementing those measures that we are supposed to undertake to be able to ensure that we are able to combat financial crime, which is an enabler of organized crime.
The nature of the relationship between financial crime and organized crime. As you can see, financial crime enabled organized crime, which also now further increased the level of financial crime. So if we want to go and do an academic exercise, we can say there's a relationship. If you look at the correlation, it appears that there is a positive and strong relationship between the two, and they feed into each other. Now, we from the NFIU, we can't see what is in your bank account, so don't worry. But our main role is to ensure that we receive information that we're able to analyze, to disseminate to law enforcement and other competent authorities, so as to fight money laundering and terrorism financing.
Why is crime increasing? So that is because of the human factor. And the consequences of this crime has become enormous and inflicting hardship on all of us. You talk of corruption, you talk of everything, but what is happening? The issue of illicit financial flow, that is about 88.6 billion. Meanwhile, what we are getting from those that receive this as a kind of assistance is about 48.8 billion, which is just half of what is living in our region. So who is benefiting? Who is also cheating one another? And this illicit financial flow is facilitated by institutions, by individuals, not spirit. So the question is, what has happened to these institutions and what has happened to the individuals? How are we checking them?
Grand corruption has been defined as political corruption, state capturing, kleptocracy as against democracy, enterprise. In a nutshell, grand corruption is synonymous with organized crime. In fact, it has taken the dimension of what you call the Nossa Nostra. It's our thing, if we want to be frank to ourselves. We've heard the cabal, we've heard the mafia. All these are conjectures of the press. But the reality is that we have a fraternity as we concern today that is state-driven. The issue of corruption is no longer the 10% you get. It's no longer kickbacks, but it's now how much of the state's coffers are you able to loot? The more you loot, the more creative and diversified you are in your looting, the better the chances of you rising on the ladder of this body called the Nosa Costra, which is the state. So, in a nutshell, what has caused all of this? As we said, we have weak institutions. Our legal system is very poor. Now, it's not as if we lack laws. We're very intelligent set of people in Nigeria. There are laws and laws and laws and laws. But what do they come out of? So when we have weak rule of law, obviously organized crime will there because corruption is endemic.
What is financial crime? From the definition so far we have all had this morning, financial crime is simply a range of illegal activities that are perpetrated through financial system or institution for illicit profit. Criminal activities that involve what? Money or other financial resources. The question is, why are people still succeeding? In fraud management, there is what we call WOE, W-O-E. The willingness, the opportunity, and the exit. That once this is there, then this will continue to thrive. On the other hand, what is organized crime? Organized crime is a continuing criminal activity or enterprise that rationally works to profit from illicit activity. And we have given examples of this: drug trafficking, terrorism, illegal arms trafficking, child trafficking, and so on. And that this enterprise continues to exist through the use of force, through the use of threat, and or corruption of public officials. By the time you look at it, you now begin to ask yourself, is there actually a distinction between organized crime and financial crime? Since the end point is to generate illicit proceeds, which can be fund or other economic resources.
From what we have from our records, it appears money laundering just between last year and this year, from the reports that we disseminated to the relevant competent authorities, has increased by over 400%. Over 400%, just money laundering cases. If you look at bribery and corruption, you have almost 50%. If you look at tax evasion, this has gone up by 32%. So I can go on, and these are all financial crimes that encourage organized crime. And at the same time, once these organized syndicates indulge in these particular crimes, what they do is they weaken the legal framework that we have to fight money laundering and terrorism financing. They increase bribery and corruption in the system and make our lives less secure.
Impunity. As was said, we have government officials that have been accused of looting the Commonwealth. What has been done to them? Absolutely nothing. The state institutions are weak. The EFCC, the ICPC, the whatever. They're just there. All we've been talking about is technicalities. But we know that there's a lot of impunity going on right now in looting the treasury. And some of these governments, if not most of these government officials, have now developed their own armies to protect them. If you oppose them or you criticize them, you become a victim. That is organized crime. The guys who work for these people, they do it with impunity. They do it brazenly. We all know this. The police, the army, do nothing about it because those who sponsor them are at the top. They will tell you there's an order from above. Who are those above? They're the political class, the elite.
The two have that connectivity. Financial crime generates the proceeds that fuel organized crime. There are 21 categories of financial crime, which the International Anti-Money Laundering Global Network, championed by the FATF, the FATF, including terrorist financing, trafficking in human being and migrant smuggling, sexual exploitation, including sexual exploitation of children and prostitution, illicit trafficking in narcotic drugs, illicit armed trafficking, illicit trafficking in stolen and other goods, corruption and bribery, fraud, which includes cybercrime that was just discussed. In our own environment, used to be called 419, which encompasses what we call Yahoo Yahoo. Today, Yahoo Yahoo has been upgraded to become Yahoo Yahoo Plus. And I'm sure you know why it is called Yahoo Plus, because they have added another demonic side into it, which includes unholy practice that apart from using the internet, they also want to use human parts to be able to do that. Then counterfeiting and piracy of products, environmental crime, murder, grievously body harm, kidnapping, including kidnapping for ransom, robbery and theft, smuggling, extortion, forgery, piracy, including maritime piracy, insider trading and market manipulation, and then tax crime. These are the 21 basic offenses, which we call predicate offenses of money laundering. Every financial crime leads to money laundering, and that is why we call it money laundering and its predicate offenses.
You all are going to agree with me that financial crimes literally enables organized crimes, because these organized crime groups use financial crime activities to be able to escape the radar of the government, to escape accountability, and have access to their illicit funds. And you're going to find out that no matter the amount of money people steal, they do not go to jail beyond 15 years in Nigeria. So I think our constitution is very, very lenient, very, very lenient in the sense that they did not go to jail. You probably find a situation whereby someone stole over 10 billion naira, and he or she was sentenced to 10 years imprisonment. The case of Joshua Dari. So for me, I think our law is the enabler, and we need to simplify our law that will be very, very less ambiguous and less complex for even a JSS3 student could literally understand and articulate our law properly. And with civil society organization, you need to advocate for the executive to actually revisit this, the legislative to revisit these constitutions and make some necessary amendments.
The issue of money laundering it's a book thing. It's an academic exercise. Because we see them take this money in billion vans. We hear about private jets landing in countries with our currency. Nothing is done. So it is not a new thing. The only way we can, save our country from this, the arm of these people, is if we can look at our law that take away the immunity from the political class, who are now enstranging every one of us.
For this fraud to take place, there must be opportunity for the criminals to undertake this. And that means there are sectors that encourage this crime to take place. And that is what we call the vulnerable sector. You have the banking sector, the real estate sector, the virtual asset service providers, and so on. You'll be wondering, what is the real estate doing? When you move between airport and the center city here, you will see so many estates that are not occupied. You begin to wonder, what are these estates built for? We are still waiting for FCT and the law enforcement agencies to tell us why those buildings are not occupied. Then you have Bureau de Change. Yesterday, I had a session with them under the Central Bank in Lagos. The question they were asking, why is Central Bank bent on making them to lend anti-money laundering when they are not giving us money again to trade? Just yesterday, the program is still on today. They have not been able to establish that their sector can be used by financiers of terrorism. How do we combat financial crime? There are three key pillars. We call them the 3 Ds. you have to start with the issue of how do we dictate so that we can reduce the profit that criminals make by limiting the opportunities open to them. How do we deter them so that we will increase the risk of undertaking such activity? And this can only be done if we have what we call proportionate and dissuasive sanction applied. We have noticed in Nigeria about some years back, a young man called Jangebi, I don't know whether you can still remember him, from Zamfara State, who stole a cow. His hand was cut off, his right hand, for stealing a cow. But we had bank director that made away with about 5 billion. He was only sent to 6 months jail. Can you now say which of these two sanctions is more proportionate and dissuasive? Then, for organized crime not to thrive and not to be facilitated by financial crime, there must be reason and way of disrupting it so that all possible actions should be deployed to cut off this process.
If you are continuously assessing your risks as a country, you'll be able to identify those vulnerable areas, those high-risk sectors, so you can address them and have a plan to mitigate effectively against them reoccurring and to weaken those criminal activities in that sector.
The only way we can truly address this so-called impunity is taking away the immunity that guides these people, the political class.
So what do we do to address this? One, we have to review the extant legal frameworks and infrastructure. Look at our national constitution. Nigerian constitution gives that right to a sitting president, a governor, that immunity. And look at our own environment. Does that help us in fighting this crime? Those are the kind of things we need to look at. That a governor, after serving 8 years, was indicted in this country of 114 count charges, and none was seen to be okay. But the same governor was also prosecuted on only 5 in UK, and he was sent to jail along with his wife, his girlfriend, and his lawyer. So what that shows what is happening within our legal framework. Our institutions need to be strengthened so that they will become functional, independent, and autonomous. The judiciary, the law enforcement agencies, the financial intelligence, the customs, and so on. There is a study that said agencies in Africa are the ones actually aiding and abetting smuggling. Obama said, as the president of America, Africa needs strong institutions and not just strong individuals. So I hope that as we deliberate on this, that we will be able to see how we can make our institutions stronger, particularly what we call accountable institutions, the banks, and so on. Because for these crimes to take place, there's a collaboration between the criminals and the institutions. It could be inadvertently, could be intentional, depending on how the institutions see them. And that is why we need to build these institutions to become stronger, apply what we call appropriate sanctions that will be dissuasive, effective, and proportionate.
We have discussed maritime crimes in the Gulf of Guinea. We have discussed cyber crimes, and now we are rounding up with financial crimes. If you look at any of the financial crimes, any of them, you find that they are all enablers of organized crime. If you take human trafficking, it starts with an individual who seeks for the victims. Then the people that are enabling the movement of the victims will come in. Then the transportation of the victims. the people that receive the victims outside the country, things like that. There are syndicates that organize crime. If you look at money laundering, there must be a predicate offense, whatever it is, and then the money is generated, and then the money is being transmitted through the banks or other financial institutions to wherever it goes to launder the money. So all financial crimes, all of them, if you look at them, they revolved around organized crime. So to build institutions that will counter these organized crimes, Nigeria, I'm sorry to say, has to sit up. We have seen from the paper presented by Dr. Bruno, all the reports of GIABA and FATF on the mutual evaluation are nothing to write home about. It's either partial compliance or non-compliance at all. So as far as I'm concerned, if I'm to assess the institutions responsible for financial crimes, I will assess them below average. So we have to look at all the institutions, look at the internal workings of the institutions as individual institutions, and then look at the interagency cooperation between these institutions, because none of the institutions works alone. The regulators, the CBN, the National Insurance Commission, the Security and Exchange Commission, all of them have to be seen to be working together to regulate their various industries. And then the law enforcement agencies, the EFCC, the police, and the other ones, customs and the rest of them, have to also work together. So we have to strengthen individual institutions, and we have to strengthen the cooperation between these individuals if we are going to build resilient institutions to fight organized crime. Thank you very much, Dr. Bruno, for the paper presented. Thank you very much, all the panelists. Thank you very much for your patience.